The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hey everybody, welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness. I am your host, Rob Rosenthal. Coming to you live this evening. What is it, January the 13th of 2021. Glad to be here with you live for the program. It's the first show of 2021, but it is episode number 101 of All You Can Eat. So I don't know, new year, episode 101, kind of a fresh start. I figured I would start this evening by kind of reintroducing myself to those of you who are new to the program. Tell you a little bit about me and how we got to where we are right now today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, we'll talk about delicious, because that's what it is that we do. And sometimes that involves things that I'm eating or making. So we got a couple of those. Got one of those on the agenda this evening, and also a review of some memories that I have about great meals from restaurants, because one of the things that's happened over the past year is that a lot of restaurants have closed. Because of the whole pandemic crisis. And some of those losses, they all hurt a little bit when you lose a restaurant that, you used to go to and like and enjoy and find special or whatever. Some hurt more than others. So I'll talk a little bit about that this evening. And then, as always, I will provide you some recommendations on how to make your life a little bit more delicious, because why? It's what I do. Sometimes that involves, stuff, as I said, that we might be cooking ourselves or making, but oftentimes it involves products that are sent to me for the purpose of reviewing and making recommendations. No obligation whatsoever. Nothing that goes into my pocket, but many times I do have recommendations that I think are worth, and I only really report on the things, honestly, that I think are worth having. And we got some of those tonight as well. Episode 101 here, coming to you live. Now, normally, I don't know. I think if I had I don't know the exact data on this, but most podcasts do get kind of pre-recorded. It gives people an opportunity to edit and perfect. And when you go live, there's no editing, and there is certainly no perfection. In fact, I would say 99 times out of 100, or in my case now, 100, something will go awry. Something will go wrong. Just minutes ago, there was a fire alarm going off in the building that I'm in. I'm coming to you from Miami, Florida, Miami Beach. Now, of the first 100 episodes, I got to say, 75 of them came from my home base in New York City, New York. I did another 20 or 25 from out on the eastern end of Long Island, where I relocated during the crisis, if you will. And now I come to you live from Miami Beach, Florida, where I will tell you, in all truth, it's kind of lovely because it's generally 72 degrees. All You Can Eat, episode 101. I welcome back those of you who have listened to the program before, and for those of you who haven't, let me just introduce myself a little bit. I was actually born in New York City. You might detect, people tell me that there is a New York accent that they can make out. I know, I'm saying that kind of with a New York accent. I generally still live there now. I have joked before that I was born in the city. I still live in the city. I like to say that I haven't gotten far. But truth be told, I spent 25 years in the international advertising business, which allowed me to travel all over the world. I had a very nice job. I got to present creative ideas around the world, and most importantly was that I had an expense account which allowed me to eat around the world at restaurants. I don't know, at last count, probably 4,000 or so on 6 different continents. I certainly that was the best part of the job. At nighttime, my friends, I did 2 things. I performed stand-up comedy in New York City at every club there in New York City. I had a routine. I got up in front of people, and I did that for 3 or 4 years, and I got to say that I loved that, but I did stop at some point because I couldn't do that and everything else, which was have an advertising job and make a family and all that kind of stuff. But I snuck in 1 year where I went to culinary school in New York City, to earn myself a professional culinary degree. And as much as I liked comedy, I liked food even more. I mean, I've had a love affair with food since very early on. And I wanted to get a professional culinary degree after I had done comedy for some years, because I, as a kid, used to watch on television a guy named Graham Kerr, who was known as the Galloping Gourmet. And this guy fascinated me. I mean, I watched baseball, I watched Superman, but I always watched The Galloping Gourmet. It was on like 1 o'clock every day on CBS. And he spent a half an hour cooking fancy French food and was having himself a blast in the kitchen over an entire bottle of wine. And at the end of every session, he would call up someone, usually a woman, from the audience to taste with him this creation that he made. And the look on his face was unforgettable because it was the look of pure elation, joy, deliciousness, fabulous. So I had done this, gig around the world where I was presenting stuff. I did stand up in front of people where I was being hopefully funny, when I wasn't kind of, booed off the stage. And then I say, well, Galloping Gourmet, this dude knows how to cook. So I went for the professional culinary degree, and I just loved that. I mean, I kind of just loved it. And they told me kind of at the end of this that I needed to do an internship, and it ended up that I did the internship at the Food Network, which was kind of new at the time. It was like early 90s. And I worked as kind of an assistant in the kitchen for a guy named Robin Leach, who some people may know because he had a program on at the time that was famous. He was famous for. It was called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Champagne Wishes, Caviar Dreams, and boy, that guy had a good gig too. But that was my kind of background into the world of food. And then when I was able to extricate myself, if you will, from the advertising business, after 25 years of doing that, I just took all of those things. The idea that I would be presenting in a way that was funny, that was around food. And I combined all those essentially into what it is that I do now, which is a combination of writing about food and speaking about food and sometimes teaching about food and being here with you now podcasting about food. When I say writing, I mean I've written, 50, 60 articles that have been in an assortment of publications, both when there used to be real actual magazines out in the world, and then as well as online publications. I have articles in Huffington Post. I have it in a place called The Daily Meal. I've done stuff for Food and Wine. And I also wrote a cookbook. And the cookbook is called Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. I wrote the cookbook for no other reason than that my wife insisted that I did, because even though I had been working, and so was she, and when we divided up the responsibilities at home, I took cooking because I really liked it, and I did not like cleaning. And so after cooking for the family for like 15, 20 years, I was able to write a whole book about it, Short Order Dad. And it describes essentially, the kind of meals that I made and what I learned in school and all that kind of good stuff. And I was lucky because, the book took me out on the road. They sent me out on a book tour, and I enjoyed that very much. And I've done, speaking engagements on the subject of food and cooking. I've been doing some classes recently. I used to pop into this institution, or a couple of them in New York City, cultural institutions, the 92nd Street Y, super famous in New York for its adult education program. And pre-pandemic, I would pop over there a couple of times and give a class, on eating around the world, culinary tourism, I think. I give a class on herbs and spices that will change your life. And then eventually they converted a lot of that stuff into online. And so if that kind of thing is interesting, by the way, I've got another one coming up. If you wanted to, I'm doing a class that's called the Delicious Dozen, I believe. It's not until April, but I describe a dozen herbs and spices that will literally change your life for the better because they make what you're eating delicious. And I find herbs and spices to be the easiest way to take plain and simple and mundane and boring and same old stuff and make it just fabulous. If you're interested in that, you can get in touch with me somehow or another. I suppose the easiest way to get in touch with me is to find me online. You can look me up, I guess, on Twitter, where I think I am Short Order Dad. You can go to Instagram, where I go by Real Rob Rosenthal. And I believe Short Order Dad will also have a Facebook page. So any of those are opportunities for you to get in touch with me and say, hey, when's that class you're going to teach? It's April something, and I suppose you could also look it up online at the 92nd Street Y. Look at online adult cooking classes, and you'll find me in there doing a class in April on a dozen delicious spices from around the world. And as if that weren't enough, my friends, I am here with you doing episode 101 of All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. And I'll tell you something, I ended off last year and those last 4 or 5 podcasts with some really supremely terrific, talented, famous guests. Sometimes I have guests on the show. And sometimes I go solo. So tonight I'm coming at you solo for 101 because we got plenty to talk about. We don't even have to have somebody else here with me. But those last 4 or 5 were crazy. I mean, over the course of the first 100 episodes, sure, I have had on cookbook authors. I mean, a couple that have written I wrote one cookbook. I mean, I have people that have written like 9 or 10 cookbooks. I have them on. We talk about food. I have had restaurateurs on the show. Well, let's see what that. Let's see if this is. Let's just see what this is because maybe it's a call that I didn't even give you the number. Let's see what happens here if we do this.
Call for extension 0 to accept. Press 1 to send a voicemail.
We're gonna do this together.
Hear the phone number. Press 3.
I don't know what any of that means. Let's see if that works. All right, I'm getting nothing from that.
To accept, press 1. To
right.
send a voice.
I don't know. So that may be. We wanted to try to get the call-in number this evening. And I told you, by the way, when you go live, anything is possible. There you go. I'm going to give you a call-in number just in case it actually does work this evening. 800-508-5431. If you want to ask me anything, generally about food, but I can answer other questions as well. 800-508-5431 is the number. You might end up hearing a recording just like that. I don't know what to tell you to do, but let's see what it says. No, it doesn't say anything. And anyway, you can certainly try to call. I was saying that, on the podcast, I have interviewed chefs from, restaurateurs, chefs. I have interviewed cookbook authors, journalists, editors of Wine Spectator, and some famous people along the way. You get the celebrities that and you talk about food with them. I did. I had somewhere along the way. I had some super famous, world famous, chefs and food people. But the last 4 or 5 episodes to kind of close out last year. I had a guy named Raul de Molina. Now, you might not know him unless you happen to watch, Spanish television. But I'll tell you, in the world of Spanish television, this guy's Regis Philbin. I mean, he's been on the air for 22 years, every single day on the largest Hispanic television network here in the Americas. Raul de Molina, based here in Miami, actually. But super big, Emmy Award-winning guy. And then I had on recently Carla Hall. If you have ever watched food television, you may know Carla Hall. She got famous doing Top Chef. which I will tell you, by the way, Top Chef is easily the most successful franchise in the history of food television. And Carla got famous enough doing that show so that now she does her own shows. Whether it's The Chew, that was on ABC for years, or whether I turned on television the other day. There's Carla Hall on the Food Network with Ann Burrell doing a show, co-hosting a show, which was the worst chefs in America or something like that. You are not picking up. Well, all right, that's the message. I'm going to pick up. I did pick it up, but I don't know, you can hear on the air. When I picked up that line, all I got was, kind of a recording. Anyway, there you know. You could try it if you want. Carla Hall, super famous and a great guest and delightful. And then here it is again. Let's do this together, everybody. I'm going to answer this phone because it's a test of not the emergency broadcast. Let's see what happens if I answer. Here, you can hear what happens when I answer. Go ahead. I've answered it now. Hello? Hello?
Oh, yeah, this is Richter from Grasshopper. I'm just calling doing a test call. I'm working with Joe Sabino on the other line.
Okay.
It's a test call. Thank you for answering.
Okay, that's great. Gotcha. Thank you. I guess it works.
Thank you. Thank you very much, okay?
All right. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen.
I just tried it, and it didn't work. So I'll try it again.
Oh, well. It just worked now. Jim. I literally just got off the line there live on air here with the test. So apparently it works. So I'm going to give out the number, and that way for those listening live, it's 800-508-5431, and apparently the lines are open. Well, we'll see. Anyway, right, so Carla Hall, fantastic, delightful woman. We had a great interview that was here. Then I get on the next one I have is with Andrew Zimmer. Now, anybody that has been watching food television for the last decade probably knows Andrew Zimmer because he's all over the place. He did Bizarre Foods, literally traveling around the world. Terrific guy, talented cook, owns restaurant. It's just a great guy. I had an interview with him. And then I culminated the 100th episode of All You Can Eat with my childhood hero, literally, the Galloping Gourmet. Now, he happens to be alive and somewhere out. Last I spoke with him in Seattle. The thing was, last I spoke with him was a decade ago. But I had a copy of that recording. And so for episode number 100 of All You Can Eat, I spent an hour on the line with Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet. And that was a treat. And I mean, we recorded that long before there was nobody had ever heard of a podcast. I mean, this was like literally a decade ago. So the lineup has been extraordinary over the recent days. But as I said, I wanted to come to you with today, the first episode of the year here. Coming to you by myself, coming to you live, as you can hear, with apparently an open phone line if you want to try it, 800-508-5431, if you're listening live. Now, if you're not listening live, that's because you are hearing this podcast on one of the large podcast networks. Some people listen to their podcasts on Spreaker. You can find us there. Some people listen on Spotify. You can find All You Can Eat on Spotify. Some people listen on iHeartRadio, and you can find us there. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That's the answer. If you're on live, anywhere in the world, 800-508-5431. If not, any one of those first 100 episodes, and now this one, can be sought out on the largest podcast platform networks in the world, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, etc., etc. That is a little background into me, and that's what we're doing here. And future shows, of course, will feature, again, people and deliciousness in the form of cooking and meals and interviews and food and drink, which I'm going to take a little sip now, just to wet my tongue here with a little bit of bourbon. Hang on a second. That's not bad. That is not bad. Right, so, we talked about all that kind of stuff. We have a cookbook, we got some speaking things, we're doing the classes, we got a podcast right here. And here's a quick delicious for you, because I will tell you that I'll probably never write another book again. A lot of work and not really a whole lot of money, basically. Not really a whole lot of pay relative to the effort that goes into it. I mean, that book took forever, and it's a lot, and takes a lot to get it done, and long time, and whatever. And it's a very good book. I mean, I'm saying that, yes, because I wrote it, but I'm saying that because you read the reviews and you see. I mean, yesterday I literally spoke to someone who said, hey, I just made a recipe from the book. It was great. And that's super gratifying. Somebody made a brisket, which is a recipe I put in the book. A great recipe. It's made in one pot because you're going to braise a giant chunk of meat for a long time. I braise it with onions and beer. 2 hours later, it's just falling off. It's soft and wonderful and delicious. But I mentioned the book in this context. I won't write another, but if I did, it would be about leftovers. I am literally the leftover king. I am telling you, I cherish leftovers. I actually like them so much, I plan on them. And so I had made dinner last night, and one of the elements of the dinner was just simple kind of asparagus that was steamed, water, essentially salt, a touch of butter. If I had to squeeze a lemon, it would have gone in there, or whatever, whatever. And then there's a half a dozen spears of asparagus left over, plastic bag, refrigerator. But I also have in the refrigerator a couple of other little odds and ends and bits of things. And so when the asparagus went in to the refrigerator, that is, it had already gone into my dinner. I'm thinking to myself, that's not, you don't have to ask where you're throwing it. You don't throw away in my house. I'm using that. And I knew that I was going to use it in my morning eggs omelet. Because there's a couple of really great platforms for leftovers, but eggs is certainly one of them. Now, I also have in the refrigerator a tiny piece, by which I mean 2 inches, of chorizo. Chorizo, like Spanish dry kind of chorizo, in other words, it didn't have to be cooked. It wasn't raw sausage. It was kind of cooked, the kind that you would put on like a cheese board if you wanted to have cheese and, some what they would call charcuterie, maybe some salami, maybe some ham, maybe a little piece of chorizo. So I got like 2 inches of chorizo there in the fridge. And I had some leftover in the fridge of feta cheese. Again, a tiny little bit of the feta. So I have feta, and I've got that chorizo, and I've got that asparagus. Oh, and you know what else I have in the refrigerator? I got some cherry tomatoes. And so now I know that I'm going to take these 4 things, and I'm going to make an omelet out of them. And so I take the cherry tomatoes that I cut in half, together with the chorizo that I diced into little small pieces, and I'm frying them up in a fry pan here on some medium heat with a little bit of olive oil until those tomatoes start to get a little bit warm and they burst a little bit and they start to take on the flavor of a little bit of that chorizo, at which point I scramble up a couple of eggs, and into the eggs I drop that chopped up feta cheese. So I got the feta, I got the asparagus, I've got the chorizo, I've got the tomato, and then the eggs go in all together. And that cooks for 2.5 minutes until it gets all it's not even an omelet. To be honest with you, at that point, I'm just interested in making sure everything is cooked and all blended in together. It's kind of like scrambled eggs, but man, it is scrambled eggs with asparagus, chorizo, feta, and tomato. And as I'm eating it, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, I'm thinking to myself, I don't remember having a better tasting omelet. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever necessarily be having it again, because part of what makes a leftover is, it would happen to have been there. I love that. I love that. I love that I have stuff that I could convert into stuff, and I'm telling you seriously, I would almost encourage the purchase of these ingredients for no other reason than that scrambled egg omelet, chorizo, asparagus, feta cheese, tomato, holy freaking moly, was that good. Deliciousness. Before I get into the restaurant situation that I had referenced earlier, let me tell you about a couple of products that I really like, and I'm going to recommend to you now because I do that periodically on the show. I get sent a lot of stuff, a lot I don't even accept, I'm not interested in, but if I see something that looks interesting that I think it's worth trying, I go, you know what, send it to me, I'll try it. I'm under no obligation. I'm all about full disclosure. If someone wanted to pay me, you would be the first to know. If even selling any of this stuff, I was able to pick up a penny or two, I would tell you. In this case this evening, I was sent all three of these products. Again, no obligation, but I love these products, and I get nothing for promoting them or advertising them here. One of them is a cracker that comes from a company called Simple Mills, and I've spoken about it before. If you've heard the show, Simple Mills simply makes excellent products, mostly in crackers. Mostly or very frequently with almond flour, making it gluten-free. I find I have no issue with gluten personally, although I know people who do. I find oftentimes that gluten-free stuff is like surprisingly good. Now, you're talking to a guy that has a problem with bread. My problem with bread is not that it has gluten. My problem with bread is that I can't stop eating it. Bread is my favorite food in the world and my enemy. And so that I'm promoting something gluten-free, even though I have no gluten issue. And I'm telling you that in promoting it, what I like so much about some of the gluten-free products I have is that they're great. They have a great, not only taste, but texture. I mean, I buy gluten-free pretzels now because they're better than regular pretzels. Better because they have a crispier, crunchier texture to them. Simple Mills is making a lot of crackers. They're making regular crackers. They're making pita crackers. They're using excellent ingredients, like whole food ingredients. I just, at the end of the day, I just like what they're putting out there. Their almond flour crackers I just love them. They come in a variety of flavors. I happen to be looking at rosemary and sea salt. Sometimes there's just some plain crackers, but Simple Mills, you can find it at simplemills.com if you wanted to look them up and learn more, and plus you can find them basically in your grocery store. I mean, I get them in I think I get them in, I don't know, maybe you can get them in, I know you can get it at Costco because they sell giant boxes of it in Costco, and for those who know me, I am the Costco ho. I'm basically there every week of my life. But anyway, simplemills.com, find it, excellent crackers, love them. And that's number one. Recommendation number two. This one came as a surprise. It came out of nowhere. I was contacted by the people here at Bachan's. It could be Bachan's, but, it's BACHAN''S. I was never really certain about the pronunciation. BACHAN''S. Let's call it Bachan's. Because, right, if there wasn't a BA, it would just be like Chan's. So let's call it Bachan's. And Bachan's is making an authentic family recipe in small batches, Japanese ingredients, non-GMO certified barbecue sauce. Now, it's fantastic flavor, but I think part of the thing that I love so much about it is that it's adaptable, it's flexible, by which I mean that you can use it to marinate some food before you decide to, cook it, right? So if I had a chicken breast that I wanted to put on a grill, or if I had some shrimp that I want to throw into the pan and I want to give it a great Japanese, Asian flavor, I'm going to hit it up with Bachan's, right? So it can be used as a marinade. whether you're going to use it on meat or fish or vegetables or, whatever else, rice as an example. But what I also like about Bachans is that you can use it as a sauce, meaning that you got a whole bowl of white rice there that tastes like, white rice, not a lot of taste, and you go, you know what, I want to give that taste. Now, some people could drop in some soy sauce, but soy sauce is one-dimensional. It's a lovely kind of salty umami flavor. But Bachans, holy wow, what a ton of flavor and delicious flavor. Love the stuff. BACHAN 'S, Bachans.com. I mean, easy, delicious, excellent, well-made stuff. And finally this evening is a product called Safe Catch, which you can find at safecatch.com. And you ought to be able to venture a guess as to what kind of product they're selling when the name of the company is Safe Catch. And the answer is, for one thing I know, they're selling some tuna fish. Tuna fish in a can. Now, I generally will go out and buy, a bumblebee. I've had chicken of the sea. As a guy that shops at Costco, they sell 6 cans at a time of some Italian tuna, which is very good, packed in oil. But Safe Catch, I'm going to give you credit, Safe Catch. This is good tuna. And the thing that's good about this tuna is that they test the heck out of it. All right, let's try again. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try the call-in and see what happens here. All right, hello, everybody. Whoever this is, you are on the air. Hello? And there's your answer. I haven't had luck with that yet. 800-508-5431 if you're one of those people that wants to hang up on me. Safe Catch making tuna, and it's the only brand basically to test every single tuna for mercury. And that's important because you don't want to have too much mercury. It's dangerous for you. That's why people don't eat paint or whatever it is that you don't want mercury. And they're not only testing it and making sure that and they don't put any additives, no fillers, and it's sustainably caught, right? Sustainably caught, meaning that they're conscious of how much they're catching, because tuna are in dangerously. I don't know if I should say. I don't know the fact. I don't know how dangerous the supply is. I just know that you got to be careful with how many of these things you take in, so that we don't erase them from the face of the earth. Safe Catch is really good. I suppose you can have it either as a white albacore, or you can have it. I have these cans right here. You can have it as a pure wild tuna. Whatever it is, they're doing a good thing over at Safe Catch. They're making good tuna. They're catching it sustainably. They're testing it so that it doesn't have a lot of mercury. You look that up at safecatch.com. So there's your recommendations for this evening. You got your Simple Mills crackers, excellent. You've got your Japanese barbecue sauce, Bachans. You've got your Safe Catch tuna in the can. And I do, I make the tuna fish salad periodically. I had a bad experience with tuna fish salad growing up, which I've spoken about on the show before, because my mother used to send me to school with it when she'd make it 7:30 in the morning, and by the time I ate it at noon, I didn't eat it because it was disgusting. My whole lunch bag smelled. She put it on white bread with whatever, and it was just soaking wet white bread, and it was warm, and it was just gross. But ironically, many years later, my mother actually said to me, I got this from my mother. She goes, I've been making tuna these days with some some mayonnaise and a little bit of that green pickle relish. Well, I started making that, and I was blown away by how great that was. It's really great. So now I make it all the time. Tuna, mayo, green pickle relish, yummy. So if you like tuna, you got your Safe Catch. And the Italian stuff over there at the Costco that they sell you, 6 at a time. That's good tuna too. And tonight's final piece of the puzzle is about deliciousness from restaurants, and I want to talk about the restaurants that aren't around anymore. Because one of the sadnesses of the many that we've had during the past year is the closing of restaurants. And it's sad for the obvious reason. It's sad because, it's a place you used to go. And all the people that work there no longer working. And, that little place that you used to, bring your friends, or that you and your lover used to go to, can't go there. And that dish they made that you couldn't get anywhere else, can't have that anymore. But yet, I just wrote a story a couple of days ago. I wrote an article a couple of days ago on a restaurant closure that kind of hit me in a different way. It really made me sadder, and it wasn't because of the food. It was because of the experience that I had in the place, because of the memory I had there that was kind of indelible. You can look up the story, I suppose. It's funny. I'll tell you what the story is now, actually, but it was about a restaurant in New York called Sammy's Romanian Restaurant, which I think opened around 75. So that restaurant was 45 years old, and I only went a couple of times, but and one of the times I went was 1980. I'm going to tell you about that because it was the story that I wrote about. If you want to read the story, you can. It's called Blame It on the Alcohol, because my bad behavior in the restaurant that evening was based on some alcohol, among other things. But before I tell you the Sammy story, I will tell you, which you can look up, by the way, if you go to Medium.com. Medium is another one of those kind of popular now online, let's call it journals or online kind of media platforms that allow writers to publish articles. Mine article, I'm proud to say, was picked up by a group on Medium, a page on Medium, a publication on Medium called Heated, which is the online kind of publication of a guy named Mark Bittman. Bittman is super famous in the food business for having written, 30 cookbooks, but more than that. He wrote about food for the New York Times for a long, long time. Great journalist, and anyway, they picked up my article. So if you want to see the article on my memories of Sammy's Romanian, which recently announced its closure, you would go to Medium, and I suppose you could just look up either Blame It on the Alcohol or try to find Heated, which is the Bittman publication on there. I'll tell you the story, though, in a minute. It's just that I'm going to save that one for last. The other two that struck me, I was thinking, were restaurants, one that closed long before there was a pandemic, and one that is still closed, and I'm hoping will reopen, but it's closed during the pandemic. So the first one, a place that I remember going to like every week of my life for a period of as many years as it was open, was called Rocky Lee's Chucho Bianco, which I think translates into Little White Wagon. Rocky Lee's Chucho Bianco, 52nd and 2nd in New York City. And I literally, once I went in there, I remember having the pizza early on. Now, New York City is as famous for pizza as pretty much any city in the world, with maybe, the exception of some place in, Naples or wherever pizza might have originated. I mean, in the United States of America, you can get good pizza in a lot of places, but man, New York has a ton of good pizza. That's simply inarguable. You can get great pizza, in New Haven, Connecticut. You can get great pizza in Rhode Island. You can get great pizza in Arizona, and I'm sure in California and all over. But man, New York City's got a ton of good pizza. I went to Rocky Lee's. I started going probably in the mid 70s or 80s, and they did a thin crust pizza there that was just outstanding. And while I tend to go purist in pizza, which is I don't need a lot of toppings, I will say that it never hurt to have a little sausage on the thing. But I always at Rocky Lee's had the pizza with the fried eggplant on it. They had a pizza that had little strips of fried eggplant on it. That was the pizza of choice at Rocky Lee's. That and a cold beer. and maybe an opening of, they did a beautiful, fried zucchini, sticks of fried zucchini, which you could dip into the marinara sauce that they brought to the table as well. And I also recall quite fondly the pasta they called Sal's Suicide Sauce. Sal was the owner, proprietor, manager, whatever. He was always in the restaurant, Sal, and the restaurant was always crowded. And Sal's Suicide Sauce was a tomato-based sauce that was super heavy on the red pepper flakes, super heavy on the garlic, and super heavy on the basil. And whether you had it on spaghetti or, I believe, ziti, because it was better on like a curly pasta, man, Sal's Suicide Sauce was the thing. So you could be happy going to Rocky Lee's to have an order of fried zucchini, an eggplant pizza, and a plate of pasta with Sal's Suicide Sauce. Maybe some cold beer. Oh, man, I miss Rocky Lee's. That was a sad closure. And that was a long time ago. It was well before there was any pandemic. However, the next place that I will tell you about, again, the thing that I miss is pretty much about the food. This place, though, is in Los Angeles. Now, I've been going to Los Angeles, again, for, 40 years. Been there a lot of times. I've always had great food there. Happy to be in Los Angeles. Always feels like a vacation to me, right? Because you're driving around. I mean, I went on business, but, you rent a convertible because you can, and it's beautiful. And then I remember quite well going to a place in West Hollywood. It was called Mayricks, probably still there. Mayricks was famous for the scene, for the margaritas, and for the fajitas, steak or chicken or both. And after having one margarita too many, I was only a 5-minute drive over to the Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard, where you stop in prior to midnight after having a couple of rounds of margaritas, and put on some headphones like I'm wearing right now, and listen to 10 carousels worth of CD samples, and walk out of there with, 10 CDs of new music when music was purchased on CDs. But it's not Mayricks that I miss. Mayricks may still end up being there. Somewhere over the last 5 years, I read an article written by the great food writer Jonathan Gold, who has since passed away. And Jonathan is talking about a restaurant that he was turned on to by Chang. Exactly. Whose name, for some reason, I don't know why, the most famous Korean American chef in the world, all over, David Chang. David Chang told Jonathan Gold about this place in Los Angeles called Mapo Galbi. And so I had developed a love for Korean food. It's bold and exciting and different, and I love Korean food. And I say to my brother who lives out there, I go, let's go to Mapo Galbi. Now, he's been there forever, never heard of it, wouldn't have gone. I bring him over there, and there's a couple of things that you notice when you get over to Mapo Galbi. The place is a dump. And I don't say that disrespectfully. What I'm saying to you is that when you walk into a restaurant that hasn't changed in 40 years, it looks like it hasn't changed in 40 years. Linoleum, the walls are the same, the floor is the same. There's nothing fancy about this place. There's no tablecloth. There's not a picture on the wall. There's not a flower in the joint. But I'll tell you what, you got to wait to get a table in there. I mean, there's people standing in the parking lot. You put your name on a list or whatever, or you stand in a line in some sort of order, and eventually you get into this place, linoleum lined place. You get your table for 2, 4, 6, whatever it's going to be. And on your table, you'll notice there's a built-in grill. Because they're going to make your dinner right there tableside. And I'm sure that there's a couple of things on the menu, but everybody's getting the same thing. You're getting dak galbi, which is chicken in a spicy Korean stir fry. And you go over to the cooler in the corner, because in the cooler in the corner you can grab yourself some OB or some kind of Korean beer. Or you can get yourself a little bottle of soju, which is your kind of Korean distilled rice-based spirit, like their version, if you will, of somewhere between vodka and sake. And while you could have it plain, You could also have it flavored. I mean, they're probably, I don't remember, I used to love a couple of the flavors, but either way, you know, a bottle of soju, that'll knock you for a loop. But because it goes down easy and it's delicious and you're having it a shot at a time, so you're not really thinking much, but then you go from not thinking much to not thinking at all. And while you're not thinking at all, you're having dak galbi. They light up the grill at the table, round, like flat, with the grates, because they're going to now, not even the grates, because it's a stir-fry situation. They come over and they start putting some things on the grill. There's some chicken, and then some greens kind of go on there, and then they go, you want it like mild or medium or spicy, and that'll determine how much spice they're putting into the thing. And they're using the gochujang, which is, I would say, one of the great, fermented hot sauce, basically, with a sweetening. Like, the thing about gochujang that's so amazing is that it's spicy, and it's super full, but at the same time, it has a little element of sweetness to it, and a little bit of that kind of sourish kind of fermentation that you get. Anyway, so that goes on, and then the vegetables go in there, and then they come over with these like rice noodles. Korean rice noodles, to me, are just amazing because they're like they're like chewy, like little, not as chewy as like a little chunk of red licorice, but like that, like shaped like that, and with a lovely chew, and that cooks in there as well. And all this is going on, and it's cooking, and the smell, and then the soju that you're drinking, and then they go, some cheese, which seems unusual in Korean food, but you go, yeah, of course I want some cheese, so they put some cheese into that thing as well. So now your chicken and your gochujang and your greens and your vegetables and your flavorings and all this kind of stuff are mixed together, and it is fantastic. And then halfway through, they come over with rice, and they dump rice in there, and they let it keep cooking until the rice gets crispy, kind of like the crispy rice that you would have at the bottom of a paella, where in Spanish they call it sacarad. It's the crispy rice. It's where the money. I mean, that's your money bite. And this mapo galbi, it's if you go to the site right now, it'll say temporarily closed, but that temporary has been a year. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been out there because, you can't go anywhere these days, but I do miss that. And every time I go to LA, or for the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, it's not like I don't need to go to no fancy. I don't need to go to a sushi. I don't need to see Wolfgang Puck. I'm not going to Mayrix, right? I'm not going to Gladstone. I want mapo galbi. First choice of any place that I want to eat. And I'm having dak galbi. So I missed that. And then I read a week ago that they announced the closing of Sammy's Romanian restaurant on New York's Lower East Side. And I was sad about that. Not because of the food. Food was somewhere between fair to okay to sometimes good and sometimes not so good. But Sammy's was a scene. I went in 1980. I was a kid. I went with 11 other kids because it's the kind of place that you would go with the crowd. You had to walk down to get in, so it was below street level. It was like in a basement, to be honest with you. Dump would be kind of kind. Pictures, basically little photographs and paper, clinging to the wall. People who had been there, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff hanging on the wall. And it was a little dingy in there. But I'll tell you what, there was a dude in the corner on an electric keyboard playing some songs, and people were not shy to get up and sing along. And some people would get up and dance. And when you sat down, and we were a party of 12, it was a great place to go if you had a group, because they came over to the table and they put onto the table some bread and some pickles, and they put on some a bottle of rendered chicken fat, literally the fat of a chicken that had been melted and put into a syrup bottle like the kind you would find at International House of Pancakes, and you were going to use that chicken fat instead of butter, and you were going to put it on things like bread and some other stuff that eventually would find its way to the table, and then it was the vodka. And I don't mean just any vodka. In those days, it was absolute. They brought it out in a block of ice. We had never seen that before. A bottle of vodka served in a block of ice. And I'm going to tell you something, by the way. When you have ice-cold vodka and it's served in these little glasses, it's you don't need a lot of other stuff. You don't need to turn it into a martini. You don't need to turn it into a cosmopolitan. You don't need to basically put in soda or tonic or juice. It's ice-cold. You're having it by the shot. Boom! And when you're 20, you just keep having it. And then you go, okay, well, I got some chicken fat here. I got music in the corner. I got vodka going. This is good. What else are we going to have? Chopped chicken liver, which came over to the table. And they finalized the preparation of it at the table by taking some of that liquefied chicken fat and putting it in there, mixing it all up so it got all kind of creamy and yummy. And you put that on the rye bread. And I'll tell you what, that is the poor man's pate. I mean, that is deliciousness. Fantastic. And then you would order a couple of, what did they call those things? Dumplings. Not knish. They had these meat-filled dumplings. I referred to them as belly bombers. A kreplach, that's what they called them. Lovely, And the most famous dish, since it was a Romanian, theoretically, restaurant, was the Romanian tenderloin steak, which was famous for extending over the plate. Your plate was a foot. Your tenderloin was about 1.5 feet. And the one thing I can tell you for sure is that, I don't know, you just need more vodka to wash all that kind of heavy stuff down. So we just kept drinking the vodka. There's music going. The place is a carnival. And then when you're done with the meat and all that kind of stuff and the main course, now comes the highlight of the meal. It's going to be dessert. And they bring to the table, the waiters, three things. They bring a cold bottle of milk, and when I say bottle, it came in a glass bottle, because that's how things were in those days. You could get milk in a glass bottle. And then they brought over chocolate syrup, a brand of chocolate syrup called Fox's You-Bet, which you can still buy. And then they came over with 2 or 3 of those old-fashioned seltzer bottles, the kind that were refillable. They were in like blue and green glass. They had a little... what would I call it at the top? Like a pistol, like a lever at the top that when you pressed, you would shoot out the seltzer. Now, if you grew up watching ever the Three Stooges, you know that those seltzer bottles could be used. They shot like 10, 12 feet. Carbonated water. And I'm going to tell you also something that I thought of. I remember being a kid and going to the boardwalk or a carnival or an amusement park. You remember that game where they had those water pistols that you could shoot into a clown's mouth? And then on top of the clown's head, there was a balloon. And if you were the first person to shoot that into the water into the clown's mouth and your balloon popped, you won the prize. So I'm a half a bottle of vodka in. I can tell you that I remember the Stooges. I remember the carnival game. The place is loud. It's raucous. And I also remember this woman at the next table got up to sing along with Havana Gila. She was a redhead, and she was not a little woman. And I don't know. Between the vodka and the memories I had in my head, I waited for Big Red to... hit a high note there, and I grabbed a bottle of seltzer, shot it right in the back of her throat. I mean, bullseye. I'm just telling you that if they were giving out prizes that night, if that woman had a balloon on her head, I'm walking out of there with a stuffed animal. I hit it. The problem was she screamed. She screamed a scream that could be heard around the Lower East Side. At which point, every waiter in the joint kind of ran over to the table, grabbed all the seltzer, took whatever vodka we had left, which was not very much at that point, and we were reprimanded for bad behavior. But I will say this, that I miss the Sammys because that memory, which is now 40 years old, is unforgettable. So the restaurant closing thing, man, it's a little sad sometimes. Sometimes it's the food. Sometimes it's just like, you can't go back to that place. And sometimes it's the memory and the experience of a place. So if you got restaurants that you like, make sure and they're still open, make sure you keep them in business. That, my friends, is All You Can Eat. Episode number 101, coming to you live, as you can tell, from the, whatever. And as always, a treat to be with you. Appreciate your time. And I guess I'll leave you with this thought. I'll be back next week. We'll do it again. If you want to hear any of the old shows, you know that you can go to, for example, iHeartRadio podcasts and look up All You Can Eat or Rob Rosenthal. You know, you can, if you're a Spotify person, you can find the program there. And I'll be back live next week. And until then, my friends, remember this: life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on.